Okay, if you've got a cell phone, go ahead and turn it off or put it on airplane mode or silent. I know we got a hard act to follow after those 4 young kids. And we found them at Fort Fisher at the grand opening. So those kids are great, and the mom's got them under control. All right, if everybody would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Who's a new member or a guest tonight? Please stand up. I know everybody gets started to be saying this, but welcome to the largest round table in the country. Okay, tonight we're going to celebrate our 15th anniversary. It's one of the reasons we had the music. This is a list of the volunteers. Would all the current volunteers please stand up? There's 63 people that it takes to run this thing when you look at everything we do. And there's still a whole bunch of them out there in the lobby finishing up before they get to come in. Now, Wally, stand up. We owe this man a heck of a lot of credit for getting this thing started. Him and Tom O'Donnell started it in 2010. Now, he doesn't want me to tell this story, but how they got it started, him and Tom, is the 2 wives got together and said, "You 2 guys, go over there in the corner." So they got over there, started talking about round tables and everything they'd seen and not seen, and that started this one. And how many people did you have at your first meeting, Wally? He had 15, next meeting 100. Wally, great job. Okay, this is some of the former members. Or former volunteers. I have 2 slides. There's 92 people that have volunteered in the past. And you'll see a lot of the volunteers are couples, husband and wife teams that have volunteered for a long time doing various jobs. You can't make an organization like this work without good volunteers. That is critical for us. Okay, come this fall, Ann's already set up Thomas Jesse to do an impersonation of General Lee in the September meeting. This guy is as good as the Grant guy. If you saw the Grant guy, this guy is just as good. Because the 2 of them work together and do Appomattox and several other impersonations together. So he's good. Ladies, special treat for you because Robin has got Emily coming in. She's got a Wilmington tie. She drowned off the coast of Wilmington at the end of the Civil War. They'll explain it to you about what happened. But that's another great impersonator. you'll have a great time with her. And then if you don't have anything else to do, Walsh and Dunn, the tour guides, will be doing Fort Anderson and Town Creek with Fonville. We'll be doing a night tour again. We're not going to do it in this cold of weather this time. And we got Jim McKee coming back doing multiple tours of Caswell. So that's just the start, plus a lot of good speakers. All right, reminder, Sutler's Table. If you didn't get a map, you want something to do this summer, we got plenty of maps back there, North Carolina, Maryland, Virginia, a lot of places to go. All right, Matt, where are you? On the way. Okay, we're going to do 50-50. How much? $169. $169. Okay, the winner of $169 is 6351254. 6351254. Who's the lucky person? Are you the lucky person? All right. Somebody's going shopping. All right, for a free book at the Sutler's Table, 635-1381. 1381. Do I have a winner? 635-1381. All right, if you read your number, head back to the Sutler's Table so you can pick up your book. Ann will introduce tonight's speaker. We'll get him transitioned to his new slides. And there you go, Ann.
I'm short, so I bring it down here. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're honored to have Dr. Brad Gottfried with us to present the Antietam paintings of James Hope. Brad is an award-winning author of 14 books on the Civil War. His most recent award was the 2023 Army Historical Foundation Distinguished Writing Award for his book, Maps of Spotsylvania Through Cold Harbor. He retired as the president of the College of Southern Maryland in 2018 to devote his time to writing more Civil War books, hopefully, and conducting battlefield tours. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Brad Gottfried.
Well, it is absolutely wonderful to be here. I come to many Civil War roundtables, and I've never been to one like this one, I have to tell you. Typically, this is amazing, it truly is. Typically, I'll have maybe 15, 20, 25 people at a round table. So I look around, and not only do I see men, and I usually see only men, but to see so many women, that is amazing. And I really want to recognize Wally and John and everyone else who's made such a big difference. I also want to thank Ann. She does an amazing job. I can't begin to tell you. I'll mention the Civil War Roundtable. Well, it's in Western Pennsylvania. It's a big city, but I'm not going to tell you which one. It begins with a P. The morning of my presentation, he says, oh, are you ready to come? Ann, on the other hand, regularly contacted me to make sure I was comfortable. I knew what to expect, etc. So thank you, Ann, for what you've done. A slight revision. I'm up to 22 books on the Civil War. And my real claim, if there's a claim to fame, it's I do a lot of map books. And this is Maps of Gettysburg, so I'll have a map on one page and a book and the text on the other, and there'll be about, oh gosh, maybe 150 or so, 160 maps. But tonight I'm going to do something different. My most popular talk, and I was mentioning this to Ann, is about Lincoln. I won't say boo that we're in the South, but I think most people appreciate Lincoln. And when you think about his visit to Gettysburg, you would think we know everything about it, right? We know very little, and there are all these mysteries. But my second favorite one is what I'm doing this evening, and that is the Hope paintings of James, the Antietam paintings of James Hope, which you may never have heard of. Have you ever heard of James Hope? I never heard of him. So I'm an Antietam Battlefield guide, and before they renovated the visitor center, they had all 5 of these paintings. I have to tell you, they're 5.5 feet wide, high, 12 feet long, and they are amazing. You're going to see all 5 of them tonight. And the problem is when they renovated the visitor center, they said, well, we can't put all 5 out there anymore. We can only put 1 at a time. And we can rotate them maybe every couple years. Where I'm 75, I don't think I'm ever going to see all of them again. So my wife and I, who's sitting in the audience, decided to write a booklet on these paintings, which you will see, if you don't agree with me that they're not fantastic, I'll still talk to you, it's okay. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about these paintings, and I'm going to blow them up so you can really see the detail. We're going to load cannons, we're going to fire cannons, we're going to see what it was like to be in battle. We're going to see some of the horrible aftermath, etc. All right, here he is. That's Captain James Hope. He did not have an easy life. I want you to imagine he's born about 1819. His mother passes away before he's even 2 years old. His father will move from Scotland, that's where he was born, to Canada when he's 9 years old. Now, I want you to imagine you're with your dad, everything is not so great, but still you've got a dad. The dad will die when he's 16 years old. And he's penniless, he's homeless. So if you're in Canada, where do you go? You come to America, you come to the United States, right? The land of opportunity. And he walks 150 miles to Vermont. And he will become an apprentice to a wagon maker. He hates it. But he starts taking classes, art classes, and he really feels that he has an affinity, and he really enjoys it. And then he gets married. And what happens when you get married? You need a steady income, right? So he becomes a school teacher, puts all the paints beside him away, and is working full time. And the next part of the story, I don't even like to think about. I got to tell you a little bit about it. He's chopping wood, and he has a horrible accident. I don't even want to visualize. You can imagine. He's going to be laid up for several months. And while he's there, he picks up the paintbrush, and he starts painting, and he gets commissions. And he says, you know what? I think I can support myself as a professional artist. So he goes in that direction. Vermont, though. Is there a big population of Vermont? Obviously not. So he moves to Montreal, Canada. Anyone been up in Montreal, Canada in the winter? You want to be here, right? He says, I can't do this. So what he does is he moves back to Vermont, can't make a living. He goes to New York City. And he is going to open up a studio in New York City. He's going to be there in the winters. He goes to Vermont in the summers. Life is good. At the outbreak of the Civil War, he's 43 years old. Now, if I'm 43 years old, I don't know if I want to join the Army, but he's going to help recruit Company B of the 2nd Vermont Infantry, and he becomes their captain. He's going to be at First Bull Run. He's going to be at many of these battles with the 2nd Vermont until December 20th, 1862, when he's mustered out for, and I'm going to use quotation marks, a persistent illness, whether that's malaria or whatever, we don't know. But he's going to start to paint, and he starts painting canvases relating to what he's seen. And so here are some of his initial this is one of his initial paintings, a little crude, but you know, he's just getting back into it. And as he gets more proficient, he becomes better at it. He becomes, and Linda is not here to help me, he becomes part of the Hudson River School of Artists. And there he's painting. He has the opportunity to go to don't tell me now, Watkins Glen. Has anyone ever been to Watkins Glen in New York? Yeah, it's beautiful. He says, forget all this stuff. Forget about Vermont. Forget about New York City. He moves there, and he's going to open a gallery. And he's painting there. And life is good. Well, what happens is, during the 1880s, a lot of these veterans who didn't want to think about the Civil War or even go to a reunion or anything like it, in the 1880s, he goes to 2 reunions at Antietam. And he says, you know what? The 60th anniversary is coming up. Or, excuse me, the 30th anniversary. I am going to, according to James Hope, I'm going to paint 5 panoramic views of this battlefield and the battle in time for the 30th anniversary. Now, does anybody know when the Battle of Antietam was fought? September 17th, 1862, the bloodiest one-day battle in American history. About 23,000 young men killed, wounded, and missing. And he does it. But here's the problem. That is September 17th, 1892. He dies the 20th of October the following month, probably of exhaustion, trying to get it done, and we're going to see it tonight. And so the paintings, he's trying to sell these paintings. He thinks, I'm going to make a lot of money. Nobody wants to buy them. Who's got a wall that big? And so he leaves them in the studio, and he bequeaths them to a son who's a talented photographer. Son passes on to his kids. But they keep the studio open. There's a massive flood at Watkins Glen in the 1930s. And these paintings that I'm going to show you are buried under tons of mud and debris for years. And then they're going to be recovered. They're going to be restored. But they disappear. Where the heck are they? They find them in a church near Watkins Glen. And here's the bad part, the worst part. They have been hammered into the eaves of the church with 6-inch nails. You can imagine birds and rodents doing all kinds of things to them. Well, the Park Service finds them and buys them for $5,000 for all 5. Pretty good. It's going to take them over $30,000 to restore them. And so they were in the visitor center, but now they're in storage. Okay, so that's his story. Are we ready to talk about Antietam? Now, how many of you have a sense of, I know this is North Carolina, you had some big battles here, but has anyone ever been to the battlefield of Antietam? Let me see some hands. Oh, good, okay. This was, as I mentioned, the bloodiest one-day battle in American history. Oh, there we are. You got 2 Army commanders, old Robert E. Lee, who I guess is going to be coming to visit you. You might want to ask him what happened at Antietam. And his counterpart, George McClellan, who has a horrible reputation of being slow. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Antietam because I want to talk about these paintings. But I want you to imagine that Lee and McClellan and John Pope, the Confederate Army, the Army of Northern Virginia, has spent all of its time in Virginia. And Robert E. Lee and Jefferson Davis, the President of the Confederacy, say, it's time to push the issue. If we're going to be independent, we need to invade the North. We need to get into Pennsylvania. And Robert E. Lee, right after the Second Bull Run campaign, will begin moving north into Maryland. He's heading for Pennsylvania, never gets there. He's going to have to fight it out at Antietam. But imagine you are in the White House, the Executive Mansion, and you know Robert E. Lee is heading toward Pennsylvania. That's going to be a nightmare. And he's going to tell McClellan, the Union commander, 3 things. This is your marching orders. Number 1, do not let Lee get into Pennsylvania. What a nightmare that would be. Number 2, don't let him attack Washington or Baltimore. And equally importantly, drive Lee back across the Potomac River. And that's what this is all about. So if you go to the battlefield of Antietam, that's what it looks like. You have Antietam Creek, you have high ground, you have some great roads, etc. And what we're going to see from here on out is how this battle is going to be portrayed by a veteran. So why don't we get right to it? And this is something I added just for you. And by the way, I don't usually wear a sport jacket. This is out of respect for you. I'm boiling hot out in here under these lights, but this is for you, and I want to thank you for coming. This is where the first painting is going to be Artillery Hell. So if you have a sense, you may not be able to see it. That's a Dunker Church right there, and that's about it. Now, you ready? Boom. That's his first painting. 12 feet long. Holy cow, 5.5 feet high. And what I'm going to do, and what I did with Linda, my wife, is we cut it in thirds, and we're going to blow up the different sections. But what we're going to see here is the Dunker Church right over there. This is called Artillery Hell because Lee has about 19 artillery pieces on the high ground, and we'll talk about that. We're going to see a Union division under John Sedgwick moving forward to attack the Confederates. All right, so a lot of things to see, so let's get to it. There it is. So this is the left side. Let me go back. So what we've done is we've just blown up this panel, okay? So you can really see what's going on. And I don't usually have letters, but because I'm here and I have a couple screens, I thought it would be easier. Okay. For one thing, you've got lots of artillery pieces. These are Confederate artillery pieces under Stephen Lee. The Yankees are attacking from this direction. They're coming this way. So what the heck is this one doing firing in the reverse? I have no idea. But it still shows you a cannon in action. Now, we don't really appreciate horses. When was the last time you appreciated a horse during the Civil War? You know, people rode them. They were generals. They were colonels. They were couriers. They pulled wagons. They pulled limbers. This is a limber right here. And this is an ammunition chest. In fact, you'll see lots of ammunition chests on this battlefield. They contain the shells. Anyone know what else? They need more shells than just those in that limber. So what else do they have? Each cannon. A caisson that has 2 ammunition chests and a spare wheel. But that's not going to be anywhere near these guns because if a shell explodes nearby, it's not going to be pretty. But look how docile these horses are. All right? Now watch this. Do you see this? You see those are dead Confederate bodies. These are cannoneers. Where did he get that from? Well, let me show you. After the battle, this was the first battle the photographers came after. No one had ever seen a Civil War battlefield before. And look at that, Confederates dead in front of a broken down limber right over here. And watch, go back. Look at that. You see where he got that from? Yeah. What else do we have? D. By the way, if you're looking for E, there's E. That's along Hagerstown Pike. I don't like the letter F, so you won't find letter F on here. But look at G. That's the Dunker Church right there. Where did he get that inspiration from? Well, look at that. Look at that. Very similar, isn't it? What's also interesting, if you know about the Dunkers, and I could go on and on about the Dunkers. These are German Baptist brethren. Women here, that's your door, right there. Men are going to be on that door. When the men go in, where are they sitting? In the front. Where are the women coming in? The back door. Where are they sitting? In the back of the church, yes. And then you have the West Woods. Farmers love their trees. And if you go to a battlefield today, you'll see too many trees. There were very few trees during the Civil War because why did they use trees? Fences, right? Building things, heating their homes, cooking their food. You had woodlots such as the West Woods, and that's represented here. Okay, so that's the left panel. Let's go to the center panel. And let's shoot a cannon, okay? How many of you have actually shot a cannon off? Kind of interesting, isn't it? Okay. Well, here it is, right over here. I'm going to do the foreground. Now, let me ask you a question. And I know I digress a little bit, but this isn't simply James Hope's paintings. It's also talking a little about the Civil War. You're a cannoneer and you just fired off your cannon. What's the worst thing that can happen to you? You put in another powder charge, right? And are there embers in there? Yeah. And if that explodes, you're dead. So they have to, when they're reloading the cannon, the first thing they have to do is make sure that there are no embers left inside the barrel of that cannon. And what we have is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. So what do you need for a fire to occur? You need oxygen, right? Well, there's a vent right there. So you see this guy? I don't know, can you see his left arm? He's got his thumb over the vent so no oxygen can get into the barrel. And then number 2, I should say, he's got something called a worm. It looks like a hanger on a stick. He's going to pull out all of the embers, all right? But they're still not done. In between, I don't know if you can see it right there and right there, in between the spokes, you can see a bucket of water. And this guy, number 1, is going to have on one of his end of his stick, he's going to have a sponge. He's going to sponge it down. So they are going to make very sure that there is not a problem. There's no embers. It's not going to explode prematurely. And then a runner is going to come from the rear, and he's going to bring a shell, and he's going to give it to number 2. Number 2. Number 2 throws that shell into the cannon, the barrel of the cannon, and he, number 1, reverses the stick, and now he's got a rammer. He's going to ram it down. Okay, so the shell is in there. What do you have to do now? You got a powder charge, right? You got to expose the powder. So number 1, 2, 3 has a pick. He's moved his thumb off the vent. He's got a pick. He's going to poke the powder. He's going to go through that vent hole. He's going to put a hole in the powder bag. And number 4, we haven't talked about number 4. He's going to put a friction primer in there, attached to a lanyard, and guess what? When he's ordered to, he's going to pull the lanyard, and the gun's going to fire. Whew. Not easy. A lot of steps, but the most important is you don't want it to explode prematurely, and they take very good care. Now, how about B? Is this guy wounded? Look at B. What do you think? Is he wounded? No. Look, that cannon has just fired. And do you want to be hard of hearing? No, oftentimes you're going to hold your hand. They didn't have earmuffs. They're going to hold their hand and pull back. But look at this guy right here under C. Not so much. He's been wounded by an enemy shell, by a Yankee shell. D, there you can see they're running for the rear. When they start to run out of ammunition, or when the enemy fire is too intense, they'll reposition the guns. There they are under D, as you can see. E is simply a road. There's that Union infantry division. And what you'll see is in the distance, you'll see South Mountain right there. Okay. And then the right, and this is one of my favorite ones. You can see it over here. There under F. But here's another view. This is to the right. And what you see are 3 lines of infantry. This is one Union division. Most people can't visualize 5,500 men. Can you visualize 5,500 men in line? I can. But here they are. Look, they're extending from all the way up there, and then they continue all the way down here. Amazing. And there are 3 lines. Each of these is a brigade. Each of them is about 1,700 men. And they are heading to the West Woods. They will get themselves beaten up badly by the Confederates. They will lose 40% of their men in 20 minutes. 2,200 men killed, wounded, missing, because the Confederates will attack them from several sides. But look at this. Look at, where am I looking at here? E. You see E? There's E. You know what that is? I don't know. First of all, this is a regiment. Can you see the regiment here? You see that space right there? And you see the space right there? That is a regiment. A regiment can be anywhere from 200 to 400 to 600 men. In the middle, who's riding right behind, under B, who's riding right behind that regiment? The commander, the colonel, right? He's giving directions to that regiment where to go on the battlefield. You have D and C, that would be the major and the lieutenant colonel. So the field officers are going to be on either side. The colonel, the commander, is going to be in the middle. And the most important aspect is E. And you probably can't see it, and you might be able to see it there. That's a flag. Do you know why they had flags during the Civil War? Anyone? Well, yeah, kind of, sort of. I mean, certainly it was a matter of pride. What was a battlefield like during the Civil War? Could you see that if they were firing? You didn't see anything. They were using black powder, so all you saw was billowing white smoke. You're the colonel. If there's billowing white smoke and there's people on either side of you and it stretches out for 100 yards or so, guess what's going to happen? That regiment's going to fall apart, right? Imagine that regiment. The colonel wants the regiment to go over here, okay? I would ask for volunteers, but I don't have enough time. But imagine I'm the colonel, and I tell the flag bearer, I want you to go that way. He goes this way. The guys on either side see him going that direction. They go there. The guys on the other side, they go. Eventually, the whole regiment moves that way. So it was a way that they could maintain control, command and control during an era of black powder. Did they have black powder in World War I? No. Or World War II? And people say, well, that's suicide, shoulder to shoulder. It was the only way that they could maintain continuity. Okay, what else do we see? Whoa, look over here, look at H. Those are Yankee artillery in action against Stephen Lee's Confederate artillery, as you can see. You see some men over here, F and G. This guy is dead or wounded on F. I decided I'll use F. And G, you can see he's probably wounded from an earlier action, and he's heading to the rear. Kind of interesting. We also have F, which are, if you go to Antietam, you'll see limestone ledges. And if they're oriented correctly, whoops, you can hide behind them. Ugh. Okay. Now, I'm not supposed to show you this. Is this the one? Yeah. It says J. And Linda, my wife, always says, don't show him this. A ranger showed me this, and I can't not see it anymore. So you're going to see it and not see it in the future. You see, Jay? That's half of a cannoneer. You can see the bottom part. He's been blown apart, as you can see in Jay. But I didn't show you that, right? Don't tell Linda that. So that's the first panel. Kind of interesting, isn't it? You got a beautiful painting, and most people say, oh, it's beautiful, and then they move on to the next one, but they don't really see it. Now you're seeing it. Okay, let's look at the next one. The next one is going to be right around here where the sunken road or the bloody lane is. And this was a horrible, horrible place, because I want you to imagine you are a Union soldier, and you're marching, marching, marching. You have no idea who's in front of you. You get to the top of a hill, and guess what? You look down, and guess what you don't want to see, but you do see? A line of Confederate soldiers lying behind a fallen fence. They will stand up, and they will fire at them. But let's see how he portrays it. There it is. It's called the fateful term because these Union soldiers, there's 2 Union divisions, about 11,000 men, are marching, and then they're going to have to turn to head toward Sharpsburg. And what you're going to see here are, you're going to see this thing on fire, as you can see. You're going to see, oh, look at these guys right in the foreground. They're important. You're going to see, look how he put Sunken Road and the fight there, all the way to the right. Some fighting over here and over here, Sunken Road over here. You'll see some farms. Interesting, but we really can't see it unless we blow it up. So let's blow it up, okay? And there it is. So this is the left panel. Now, you can see, again, some Yankee artillery firing at the Confederates. You get a line of troops. That's how they would march. These are reinforcements. We have no idea who they are. Probably from the Union 6th Corps, led by the colonel. He's with his field commanders, field officers, the major, the lieutenant colonel, and they're marching that way. Oh, they're marching this way as well. Okay? Field artillery. This. Now, let's talk about how horrible it must be to live on a farm during a battle. What do you expect? Are you going to hang around during a battle? Oh, no, you're not. You're going to leave. And in this case, Robert E. Lee's aides are going to go to every single farm owner and family and say, you need to leave. You don't want to stay here. And imagine what they must experience when they get home. What would you expect? Help me out here now. A lot, well, dead bodies, yes. Especially Confederate bodies, because the Union troops who are in command of the field, who have the field, they're going to bury their own guys first. You're going to see long trenches, right? They are going to bury these men in long trenches. Imagine you've got a farm field. You had a beautiful cornfield. It's all broken. It's all broken up. You're not going to be able to harvest it. And you've got long trenches. You're not going to be able to harvest those crops in the future. The stench is overwhelming. All of your chickens and cows and horses, guess what? Gone. Yankees and rebels have gotten into your house and they've taken whatever's not nailed down. And so your livelihood is gone and you're left with really a horrible, horrible situation. But at least your house and barn are still intact, right? Wrong if you are Samuel Muma. Samuel Muma was a man who liked children. He had about a dozen kids. Took him 2 wives to get him because the first one died in childbirth. But the Confederates will burn down his house, his barn, his outbuildings during the course of the battle. And it was done by Confederates. We know they were North Carolina men from the 3rd North Carolina. It wasn't that they didn't like Mr. Muma. They hadn't met him. They had to vacate that area. They had occupied it. And they were afraid that the Yankees are going to get into his house, his barn, his out, and shoot him, sharpshooter. So what do? You burn him down. And here it is. So he's going to represent that as C. See that? D, look at this. You see these guys? According to James Hope, that is the commander of the army, McClellan. You've got the Muma Farm Lane as I, as you will see. And then here, there's a lot of Union troops who are fighting individually. Now, do you want to be this guy standing up? No. He's an officer. And the officers will have a disproportionate number of casualties because they have to be seen. And not only will their men see them, but the enemy will also see them and shoot them. Look at F. F is using one of these limestone ledges to fire. How about G? Is he wounded? No, he probably rolled on his back and he's just loading so he doesn't have to stand up. But look at H. What do you think? Does he look like he's wounded? Yeah. So that is the middle panel. Let's go to the right panel. The right panel, if I'm painting this painting, I'm going to put the sunken road and all the bloodiness right in the middle. But he doesn't. He shoves it over to the right because he thought more important things to show. And what you have is a couple of interesting ridges. First of all, you got a lot of A. If you've been to Antietam, you know that the terrain is very rolling, and that's all it's showing here. You have two if we were in Colorado, they would call this a hill. All right, that's South Mountain, B is South Mountain. In front of it is Elk Ridge. How many of you have been to Harper's Ferry? Let me see some hands. At the end of Harper's Ferry, you got Maryland Heights, high, about 1,500 feet. That's the end of Elk Ridge. Let's see, what else do you have? D, that's the William Roulette house and his barn. And William Roulette is a tragic story because the Yankees will be in the area around Antietam and Sharpsburg for 6 weeks after the battle. And guess what they bring with them? Not only are they taking more stuff, they're bringing disease. Mr. Roulette has a 20-month-old daughter who's just learning how to talk, who will die of typhoid fever, brought on by the soldiers. And he has lost so much. Things have been stolen from his house, from his barn, etc. He asked for the government to pay $3,500 in reparations. And you know how much they give him? About $300 for the use of the barn by Union troops. I should have mentioned, by the way, this guy, Samuel Muma. What do you do if your house has been burned down, your barn, everything else? You go to Washington. I want reparations. Help me rebuild my house. And what did they say? Who burned down your house? It was those dirty rebels. Well, good. Go to Richmond. See if they'll pay for it. The guy is so wealthy, he pays for his rebuilding his farm the following year. Okay, let's continue. This is the Roulette Farm Lane right here as H, as G, as you can see. H is interesting. Civil War fences. Most people don't care about Civil War fences. Anybody care about Civil War fences? I do. I think they're kind of neat. But there's two major kinds of Civil War fences, and you should be aware of them. What do you call these right here? Split rail, post and rail, right? Did soldiers like these? You found these along thoroughfares. Do soldiers like these fences? No, they hated them because if your commander says, I want you to go from this field to this field, guess what? You can't knock that down. You need to climb over it. And what happens is you climb over that fence? You're going to get shot, yes. This is a snake fence, sometimes called a Virginia rail fence. Might have a North Carolina name too. But this is a temporary fence. It's a portable fence. Nothing is in the ground. And so Confederates or Union troops can literally push it down and use it as a barricade. You can move that fence. If you have cows, you can move it from field to field, these cows, and theoretically, it's a pain in the neck, move this fence to surround them. Okay, but this is the right side. And this is where I think much of the action is occurring. You'll see A is South Mountain, B is Elk Ridge. Look at I. I's interesting. Imagine you're McClellan and you want to see what Lee's army is doing. Look how high that ground is. What letter is that? I. That is called Red Hill. And imagine that McClellan has a signal station up there who's wigwagging all of this information about where Lee's troops are to McClellan and his leaders. Right there, Red Hill, number I. Now, here's the fight. This is the bloody lane right here, F. A lot, I mean, we're talking about 6,500 casualties in about 3.5 hours. And we're going to see the bloody lane, the aftermath. It's just horrible. You can see that there are 2 lines of Union troops. These are 2 divisions. So E is probably William French's division, and this one right here is probably Israel Richardson's. 11,000 men, and they're attacking the Confederates here and here. Now, I want you to look closely, because you'll see some of these men are not attacking. You would think the Yankees are attacking the Confederates in the sunken road, right? But can you see? Well, you may not be able to see it. They're actually shooting this way, that way. These are Confederates who have been ordered to counterattack, to leave the sunken road. I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to leave the sunken road. If you're a James Longstreet supporter, he did not do very well in this battle. And he orders his men, some of them, to leave and counterattack, and they're going to get busted up pretty well. But a lot of these bodies, more than this, there's going to be a lot of Union dead and wounded attacking the sunken road. And then right here is the 6th Corps. The 2nd Vermont, according to James Hope, is somewhere on this line. Interesting. Okay. All right, we've done 2. Oh, should we do a 3rd? Yes. I don't know what I would do if you say no. I'd say, well, thanks for coming. Now, let me explain a little bit in more detail. McClellan is on the offense. He's desperately trying to encourage Lee to leave the Maryland and cross the Potomac River, which is right here. So his battle plan is to attack from the north. He's going to attack from the south, and then maybe attack down the middle. So we've seen the attacks on the north, but now we're going to look at the attack from the south. This is Burnside, Ambrose Burnside's 9th Corps. And there it is. Isn't that pretty? You can see the color palette is very different here. You're going to see, obviously, the most important aspect is the Burnside Bridge, or the lower bridge. You're going to see where the Confederate defenders were. Up at the top, you're going to see some Union officers, and you're going to see some others that are marching across. So let's look at it close up. You can really see it now, right? You couldn't really see it before. The most important aspect of this is right here. This is the lower bridge. Now, during the battle, the upper bridge was not defended by Lee's men, and so the Yankees could just go across. Here, the lower bridge, when they're going to attack Lee's right flank, there are Confederates up here, 400 to 500 Georgia boys up here. Now, who are you going to take? Are you going to take 400 to 500 Georgia boys who are up on the heights, or are you going to take 13,000 Yankees who are trying to cross this bridge? Who are you going to put your money on? I'm going to put them on the Georgia boys, because that's a bottleneck, that bridge, and these guys are in a wonderful defensive position. And they're going to hold them for 3 hours. It's going to take 3 attacks for them finally to capture the bridge. And what you're going to see is, here they are. Some Union troops are running across the bridge. You can see others are coming to behind them. And again, he's going to use a period drawing. This was drawn during the battle by Edwin Forbes to help him remember what it was like 30 years before. Actually, he never saw this. He wasn't this part of the battlefield. Look how badly beaten up this is. All right, because the Confederates are still up on the heights, not the infantry, but the artillery. Lee doesn't have a lot of infantry, but he's got lots of guns up there. And they're blasting these men, as you can see, and blasting the bridge. Okay, this is a no-no. Why is this a no-no right here? If you are a cannoneer, you never, ever ride on the limbers. You never ride on the backs of horses. Why? What's going to happen when it hits a bump or a rut in the road? And it's going to hit a rut in the road. Guess what these cannoneers are going to do? They're going to be laying all over the ground, not in good shape. And they're going to wear down the horses. So cannoneers usually rode or walked. That's not true. Right here, you can see more troops coming. How about this guy right here? What's happening with him? That's the officer of a battery who happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and a Confederate shell has dehorsed him. Look at C. They're already collecting the bodies so that they can bury them after the battle. Okay? And then the right panel. Look at this guy, all in braid. That's Ambrose Burnside. That's the commander of 13,000 Union troops riding around. You have, obviously, an artillery blast in C. A is where the Georgia boys were up in that hill right there. And what's going to happen is, as the Union troops are going to cross the road or across the bridge, they're going to march along this road, F, but they have not attacked Lee's flank yet. They're trying to attack Lee's right flank, and where it is, beyond there. So they've got some climbing to do, as you can see. And by the way, I do want to point out one thing that's kind of interesting. You see that tree right there? You see that tree? Under I, watch that. There it is right there. And if you went to the battlefield today, guess what? It's still there. That's a witness tree. Okay. All right, I got to pick it up because Ann's getting her hook. All right. Number 4. Illustrates something that happened toward the end of the battle that should not have happened. And that's happening right in this general area, right toward the middle of the battlefield, right over here. Okay. It's called wasted gallantry. I want you to imagine, if you will, these are Yankees. These are Yankees from the 7th Maine. 6th Corps have not been in action, and the commander, William Irwin, says there are some Confederate sharpshooters, snipers, right over here and right over here. We got to clear them out. The commander of the 7th Maine, is Major Hyde, realizes they're not a handful of enemy soldiers. There's a lot of troops there. And he basically is protesting. And what do you do if your commander says, you're taking that position? What are you going to do? You're going to go and try to take that position. And that's what's going to happen. We're going to see Sharpsburg in the distance. We're going to see this high ground right here, Hagerstown Pike. Well, let's get into it. So that's the left side. Again, Elk Ridge as A. B is South Mountain. C is Confederates have reinforced earlier the sunken road, and they're going to come under tremendous artillery fire. And those are bodies of Confederates from Richard Anderson's division that had the misfortune of crossing this open area. This is the head of the 7th, because as they're moving forward, let me show you, as they're heading forward, they realize, holy cow, it's not a handful of enemy soldiers, it's a full Confederate brigade I'm up against. And they say, let's get the heck out of here. And boom, they're going to start moving. They don't just turn and run. they're going to start turning to the left, as we're going to see. Okay, so you can see them turning to the left. Look at G. Bless you. Where was Robert E. Lee during the battle? Right there, G. And we're going to see another spot. That is, he likes the high ground. He's going to be with dozens of his cannon. This is a cornfield. Now, this is the Bloody Lane right here. I want you to imagine you're a member of the 7th Maine, and you have to march over. Let me go back again. You have to march over. Here's the Bloody Lane right here. This is where the Confederates were. You have to march over, and you're literally climbing over Confederate bodies in a horrible situation to get into line and to drive away these Confederates. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, got that. All right. These guys are exposed not only to enemy artillery fire, their own artillery is firing and shooting some of them. This is, again, A is Cemetery Hill, where Lee is, as you can see. This is C and D. The D is the Piper, Henry Piper barn. That's his house. Barns were usually bigger than the homes. Henry Piper was an interesting guy. He's going to come home, and a lot of his materials and a lot of his personal belongings were missing. And he is going to be allocated $2,500 from the federal government. And you know how much he collects? 0. Because you had to prove that you were a loyal Union citizen to get any money. He was a slave owner. He owned 3 slaves. He could not produce the affidavit to prove that he's a loyal Union civilian, which he wasn't. So he got nothing. And that was not unusual. Okay. Sharpsburg, right here, 1,300 souls, 1,300 people. Just as at Gettysburg, the town was occupied by Confederate soldiers during the battle. And unlike Gettysburg, it will be hit by massive amounts of Union artillery fire. Every house in Sharpsburg will either be destroyed, burned down, or badly damaged from Union shells. There were 150 slaves and 50 slave owners that lived in Sharpsburg during this time. Okay. And then if we go to the next one, yes. This is the right panel. Again, A is the sunken road, the Bloody Lane right here. You can see Hagerstown Pike. That's one of the reasons why Lee picked this battlefield, because you'll never guess where Hagerstown Pike goes. Anyone? Hagerstown, right. Very good. I'll bet you know who's buried in Grant's tomb. And 5 miles north of Hagerstown is Pennsylvania. So, but look over here in this area. You see these hills right here? These ridges? These ridges, it's Reel Ridge, R-E-E-L. That's where Lee is also going to spend some time. He's got dozens. In fact, look at all the artillery puffs. He's got lots of artillery fire there. Interesting. And if you ever visit Antietam, you will see a sign that says it's owned by the Battlefield Trust. They have purchased the land to preserve it. Okay. And finally, number 5 is the aftermath at Bloody Lane. This one was so badly damaged that they could not retrieve it. And you're going to see when we do some close-ups, they don't look as nice as the others because it was basically destroyed. But fortunately, James Hope had painted something, a smaller version of this. It's with the U.S. Army in one of their museums, and they were able to expand it to 12 feet. But this is, as you can see, the aftermath of this horrible, horrible fight for the Bloody Lane. So let's do the left. So if you came after the battle, this is what you would see. Is there an A there? Oh, there it is. Okay. So A is obviously all of these bodies. Now let me go back and explain. This right here would be the 6th Alabama of Robert Rhodes's brigade, and around the curve would be North Carolina boys from General George B. Anderson's brigade, okay? All right, so let's go over. So what you're going to obviously see is dead Confederates in the sunken road. You expect to see some dead Yankees, right? Because they're attacking the sunken road. But what you also see are a lot of, look at B. You see dead Confederates because, foolishly, James Longstreet saw these Union attacks being repulsed. He said, men, let's counterattack. And they're going to get blasted to pieces and have to return. This is, you can see Elk Ridge, E, and sort of behind it, a little bit maybe South Mountain. Okay, that's the left. Oh, and he's using Alexander Gardner's photographs, as we'll see. This is the middle panel. This is really a close-up of the 6th Alabama. And here's where the North Carolina boys would be. Unfortunately, he didn't, I guess he ran out of paint or something because he doesn't add their bodies over here, but they're certainly there. Now, I want to show you something and how he uses some photographs. Are you ready for this? First of all, look at this guy. You see D? Many soldiers after the battle, after the war, talked about a dead Confederate soldier who was perfectly balanced, like he's still alive, dead. Now I want you to look at this one. You see that head in E? Can you see that head in E? Now watch this. Look at that. Can you see that? Can you see that head? Yeah. Now look at this guy. You see that? You see that? Now watch. You see that? So he's using photographs to help him, as you can see. But a lot of dead bodies, horrible situation. This guy looks different. This is Lieutenant Colonel James Lightfoot, who's supposed to be dead. Guess what? He wasn't dead. He wasn't even wounded, but he thought he was. And then the last one. This is the right side, the right panel. And he made sure he painted in this Confederate soldier who was draped over one of the fences. Because many of the veterans talked about a Confederate soldier who had been shot 8 times and was laying over the fence. He added him, as you can see. Lots of different uniforms, as you can see, but still just a horrible, horrible scene that he's painting. So this was the adventure that Linda and I took to really examine the Hope paintings. They're pretty, but they mean so much more. And I wish they were on display today, but they're not going to be. So, can I ask if there are any questions? Does anyone have any questions? Thank you. Thank you. Any questions you might have? Yes.
Of the 23,000 soldiers that died that day, what were the percentages of North and South? Does anybody know?
Oh, we do know. It was pretty proportional. What you should know is Lee had a very small army. He only had about 36,000 men. Half what he had at Gettysburg. McClellan had almost 60,000 men. So Lee lost about over a little bit more than 10,000 men, and the rest were Union troops. So it was pretty close in terms of percentages. Thank you. Good question. Any other questions you might have?
Yeah. This may be a bit off topic, but I know down the road when I was visiting years ago, found a sign at John Brown's farmhouse.
Yes, I certainly am. John Brown. How many of you have been to Harper's Ferry? Great place. If you haven't been to Harper's Ferry, you really want to visit. It's a neat place. John Brown, Harper's Ferry is important for many different reasons. It was an arsenal. It was an armory, second only to, what was the first one? Springfield, Massachusetts. And so the question is, what about John Brown's farmhouse? You can see it from the road. You can see a sign. John Brown is going to start a slave rebellion. What does he need? He needs two things. He needs arms. He's going to go to Harper's Ferry. And he needs an army. And where's he going to get the army from? Slaves in the Shenandoah Valley. There are thousands there. And he's hoping he's going to go to Harper's Ferry. He's going to collect all these arms. Slaves in the area are going to hear what's going on. They're going to leave their farms, and they're going to join his army. It doesn't quite work out the way he thought. And Robert E. Lee, when he comes and visits you, you might ask him what he did at Harper's Ferry, because he's on leave. This is happening in 1859, before the war. He's sent from leave to Harper's Ferry from Washington with 88 Marines. And it's fascinating because if you're a slave owner, if you own a plantation, what is your biggest nightmare? Being killed in your sleep by your slaves, right? I mean, it's a horrible feeling, but you know they could do it. Nat Turner Rebellion. And so when word got out that John Brown was in Harper's Ferry with a small army of about 20 men, some slaves, some former slaves, some of his sons, etc., they went crazy. And what's the worst combination with guns? Liquor. They got liquored up, and it was not a pretty sight what they did to some of John Brown's men. But interesting, when Lee gets there with these 88 Marines, he says to the militia commander, what do you want to do? Do you want to storm the fort, or should we do it? What do you think the militia commander said? No, you do it. You do it. Well, while he was reconnoitering, while he's making plans before this October attack in 1859, he needed to be close to to Harper's Ferry. So he rented this farmhouse, the Kennedy farmhouse, and he has a small army in that farmhouse. He has about 15 guys in there. They can't come out during the day because the neighbors are going to say, what are all these guys doing here? Something's going on here. They could only come out at night. They didn't like to read. They didn't like to read their Bibles, so they were totally bored. But so when you look and when you drive by on the way to Harper's Ferry, you'll see a sign that says John Brown's, I forgot what it's called, his headquarters. And that's simply when he was reconnoitering, when he's determining what he's going to do, how he's going to attack. Yes. Thank you for the question. Any other questions we may have? Oh, okay. Yeah.
So where on the field was Hope?
He was all over. The 2nd Vermont is going to be mainly in the middle of the battlefield. They get there late. The 6th Corps, I don't want to go into too much detail, but the 6th Corps was really dispatched before the battle to save Harper's Ferry, to try to avoid the attack, Stonewall Jackson's attack on Harper's Ferry in 1862. So they're going to get to the battlefield late. And they're going to get there probably around noonish or so. So initially he's going to be that line by the sunken road, and then later on around the middle of the battlefield. But they're never really engaged. But still, it had an impact on him. There was something. When you read about this battle, I mean, every battle of the Civil War is horrible. But when you read about this one, there is just something that goes even above the horror. That any man was able to survive the hell of this battle is truly amazing. Well, thank you very much. And I'll be around if anyone has any questions.
If you would like to buy some books, and Dr. Gottfried will sign them for you.
And answer your questions as well. So thank you
Some
so
of
much
those
for coming. I really
22
appreciate
books
it.
he wrote.